All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we are unpacking a really fascinating paradox, the business model of for-profit higher education. We often romanticize education as this purely personal journey or a public good, but in reality, there is a massive, multi-billion-dollar industry built right around it. And just like any other major industry, it carries very specific, measurable risks. We're going to look under the hood to see exactly how these non-financial risks are officially graded by sustainability standards.
To really understand the rules, we first have to define the playing field. We are focusing on the tertiary or higher education sector, specifically profit-seeking institutions, and this covers a surprisingly wide range of business models. We're talking about two-year junior colleges, specialized business and secretarial schools, massive full-scale universities, and even elite professional schools. But regardless of what they teach, they all share one core piece of DNA. They are businesses generating revenue directly from student fees.
So, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The business model. 2. Grading data security. 3. Measuring educational value. And 4. The cost of recruiting. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The education business model, revenue and operations.
Okay, unlike traditional state schools that are heavily subsidized by direct government endowments, these for-profit entities rely on the fees actually paid by their students. But let's be real, most students don't have tens of thousands of dollars in cash just sitting in the bank, right? Because of this, these businesses survive on two massive funding pools: government-funded student aid and private bank loans. Simply put, the absolute financial lifeblood of these institutions is tethered entirely to their students' ability to take on debt. Now, to capture that revenue, their operations have to be incredibly adaptable. And how they deliver these courses differs wildly depending on the model. While a traditional university relies heavily on full-time in-person enrollment, for-profit models often cater to working adults, offering courses on a part-time or even just an occasional basis. But the ultimate growth engine right now? Distance learning. Delivering courses digitally is a real game changer because it allows these institutions to scale their enrollment and, obviously, their revenue infinitely without ever having to build a single new physical classroom. Moving on to Section 2, grading data security risks, protecting the student. With that massive shift to digital learning we just talked about, comes our first major risk pillar. Think about everything you hand over to a school when you enroll: your national ID, incredibly detailed financial data, maybe even health records. So auditors naturally want to know, with thousands of students logging in remotely from all over the globe, just how safe is that highly sensitive personal data from cybercriminals? The truth is, colleges and universities are incredibly compelling targets for cyber attacks. They process massive volumes of demographic data and PII, personally identifiable information. But the unique challenge here is that educational institutions inherently want to foster an open, collaborative environment. It is incredibly difficult to build a digital fortress around a system that is literally designed to welcome thousands of new, temporary users every single year. So, to grade this risk, sustainability standards demand ruthless transparency. Schools have to strictly disclose the exact number of data breaches they experience. And they can't just throw out a vague blanket number. They must report the exact percentage of breaches that involved personal data and exactly how many unique students were compromised. It's a strict quantitative metric designed to make absolutely sure that cyber attacks cannot just be swept under the rug.
Section 3. Measuring true educational value, debt versus success.
Now, you might think graduation is a simple yes or no metric, but standard setters look a lot closer than that. They track the on-time completion rate, which means finishing a 4-year degree in exactly 4 years. But they also track the graduation rate, which actually allows a grace period of up to 150% of normal time. Why do they do this? Because tracking both reveals if a program is actually realistically designed for student success, or if students are just getting bogged down and forced to pay for extra, unnecessary semesters.
Furthermore, just handing out a piece of paper isn't enough to prove value anymore. Schools are strictly graded on their job placement rates, and the criteria are tough. To count as a success, a graduate must find gainful employment specifically in the occupation they were trained for. They have to do it within 180 days, and they must hold that job for at least 13 weeks. Working as a barista after paying for a highly specialized professional degree, yeah, that definitely does not count as a successful placement. So why do auditors care so much about this? Well, the standard warns that student debt creates significant economic and social negative externalities if loans go into default. In plain English, if a school provides a low-quality education, students graduate strapped with high debt and basically no relevant skills. When they inevitably default on those government loans, the taxpayer ends up footing the bill and the broader economy suffers.
For these businesses, these metrics pose an absolute existential threat. Bad job placement rates cause terrible reputational damage, which makes it extremely hard to recruit new students. But worse than that, it jeopardizes their eligibility for government funding. Think about it. If the government stops allowing students to use federal loans at your institution, your entire for-profit business model essentially collapses overnight.
Which brings us to Section 4, the cost of recruiting, marketing versus instruction.
This section looks at how these entities attract their students in the very first place, because adding more students immediately boosts revenue, especially in those infinitely scalable online courses we mentioned earlier. There is a massive financial incentive to recruit as aggressively as possible. This creates a really dangerous temptation for institutions to prioritize flashy marketing over actual academic quality, and that invites intense regulatory scrutiny.
And honestly, this metric right here brilliantly exposes the industry's true priorities. The standards require schools to provide a direct financial comparison. Exactly how much do they spend on instruction and student services, meaning the actual faculty, the labs, and career counseling, versus marketing and recruiting, like targeted ads, billboards, and high-pressure sales staff. It literally forces them to show their hand. Are they an education company that does a little marketing, or a marketing company that just happens to do a little education?
To protect prospective students from deceptive ad campaigns, the rules mandate proactive disclosure. Schools must show you those critical graduation and job placement stats before they are allowed to collect a single dollar in fees. Furthermore, they have to publicly report any monetary losses, fines, or legal settlements resulting from deceptive marketing. If they are sued for lying about job prospects, there's no hiding it. It goes permanently on the record.
This globally recognized accounting table brings all these different threads together. This framework proves how the for-profit education sector can be, and is, held strictly accountable. It essentially takes the lofty, subjective concept of education and forces it into cold, hard metrics across data security, academic quality, and marketing integrity.
As we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a much deeper question to chew on. Does simply conferring a degree actually guarantee its value? Or do we desperately need uncompromising frameworks exactly like this one to cut through the slick marketing and expose the true bottom line of the business of learning? It is definitely something to think about the next time you see a targeted ad for a brand new degree program. Thanks so much for joining me.